I am Susan Sharp Campbell, Associate for Educational Ministry for the Presbytery of West Virginia. I used to lead a new ruling elder orientation just prior to each meeting of Presbytery. It lasted about 45 minutes. This video is intended to take the place of that orientation to give those who are attending Presbytery for the first time an overview of what to expect. I wish I could tell you the video is 5 minutes in length. The good news is it's not 45, but even so, you may want to grab your beverage of choice and some popcorn and have your packet in front of you on your favorite screen. Our next Presbytery meeting is Saturday, August 24th at Bluestone Camp and Retreat. For those of you who've never been to our Presbytery's camp, it's a nice place to enjoy the beauty of God's creation, even though you'll mostly see it through the windows on Saturday. But if you don't want to drive all the way to Bluestone Saturday morning, Bluestone is offering overnight accommodations and dinner on Friday evening. Even if you're close, this will be a time for good food and good fellowship. If you wish to stay Friday night, please contact the Presbytery office by Wednesday, August 21st. On Saturday, things will begin with registration and refreshments at 9 a.m., and the meeting will be called to order at 10 a.m. Before we get to the specifics of the meeting, however, there are a few things you'll need to do before you leave home. By now, you should have registered for the meeting, but if you haven't, please call the Presbytery office at 304-744-7634 or email office@wvpresbytery.org as soon as possible. You will need to download the Presbytery packet, which includes the docket and written reports, onto your phone, tablet, or computer before arriving at Bluestone, where Wi-Fi is not available. If you need a printed packet, however, one will be made for you and ready for you to pick up at registration if you call or email the Presbytery office prior to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, August 20th. Finally, consider buying a toothbrush, toothpaste, and/or travel toothpaste holder for our mission project for this Presbytery meeting. Each time we meet, the host indicates how we might support their mission, and evidently there are a lot of campers getting to camp without these essentials. Would you want to spend the week with someone who forgot their toothbrush and toothpaste? If you've never been to Bluestone and need directions, you'll find them on the homepage of the website. On Saturday, after arriving at Bluestone, you'll want to find the registration table and pick up your name tag and pay for your lunch if you've not already done so through PayPal. At 10 a.m., moderator Steve Hornbeck will call the meeting to order in the chapel. Steve is a ruling elder at First Presbyterian Church in Buchanan. Other persons to note during the day are Ed Thompson, who is our general presbyter, and Maureen Wright, our stated clerk. Together, these three seek to ensure a well-run meeting. Please note that any time you speak during the meeting, even during good news from the pews, you should address the moderator, not those gathered in the pews. It's a matter of respect and courtesy for the office of the moderator. Now let's look at the advanced packet of materials for this meeting. You'll find there are 3 sections to the packet: the docket with committee reports, a worship bulletin, and flyers with information on upcoming events in the Presbytery. If you've not already downloaded the Presbytery packet, I encourage you to now pause the video to do so, in order that you can refer to it as I walk through it. While I will hit the highlights, please read the entire packet before arriving so that you can be informed about the work of the Presbytery and the business we will be conducting at this meeting. However, I strongly encourage you not to decide how you will vote before you get to the meeting. As Presbyterians, we gather in councils to make decisions together. In those councils, we trust that the Holy Spirit moves among us, helping us to discern where God is leading us together. So come with an open mind, open to hear the Spirit in the voices of one another, as well as within yourself. On pages 1 and 2 of the advanced packet, you'll find the proposed docket for the meeting. Those items marked with an asterisk indicate orders of the day, meaning that at the times indicated, we will move to those items, even if doing so means that we postpone the issue at hand until later in the meeting. After the meeting is called to order, Sarah Specht, Bluestone Program Director, will bring greetings and share necessary information about the facilities. There will then be a time of opening business, during which we will welcome new minister members in the Presbytery, seat corresponding members, These are ministers who, though they work within our bounds, are members of a different presbytery. They are given voice at this meeting, and welcome ministers visiting from other presbyteries. This is also the time when ruling elders who are attending a presbytery meeting for the first time as commissioners with voice and vote are recognized. After the stated clerk has confirmed that a quorum is present, we will approve the docket, which will guide our work. A quorum is 15% of our minister members, or 18, and 15% of our churches represented by a ruling elder commissioner, or 19. Next on the docket is the consent agenda. This can be found on page 3. These are recommendations that those planning this meeting thought were unlikely to generate discussion, and we will vote on all of these recommendations with one vote. However, if anyone present would like the opportunity to discuss the recommendation or hear more about it, any one person can ask that that item be removed from the consent agenda, and it will be taken up when the committee report is made. Items on this consent agenda include requests for excused absences, giving someone from the Davis and Elkins New Worshiping Community permission to speak to the presbytery, approving the request for a designated pastor search. This differs from other searches in that there is active involvement by and leadership from the Presbytery's Committee on Ministry, with a Presbytery Search Committee appointed by the Committee on Ministry to screen potential candidates and forward recommendations to the church's pastor nominating committee. Other items on the consent agenda include designating today's offering for the Westminster Foundation to support campus ministry, reallocating the February offering for building a church in Kenya. The original recommendation had this church being built specifically in Neary Presbytery. An approval of communion for a presbytery event, including the celebrant. One further note about the consent agenda. Being on the consent agenda does not mean an item is considered unimportant or less important, just less likely to generate discussion. But again, any one item can be moved at the request of one person. The next two items on the docket are the appointment of temporary clerks. These are ruling elders and ministers of word and sacrament appointed by the moderator, who will hand out any materials during the meeting and count any votes other than voice votes. And the appointment of the standing committees on bills and overtures. This will consist of leadership team members present who would review any new business that is proposed to come before the body and make recommendation. We then move on to the education focus of our meeting. Jessica Lilly, host and co-producer of Inside Appalachia for West Virginia Public Broadcasting, will be our presenter. If you'd like to get a sense of her work, you can search on Inside Appalachia at www.wvpublic.org. Before worship, Resource Center Director Nellie Howard will be sharing some of the newest resources that are available for checkout today, along with other materials. In addition to checking out resources, you're also able to return resources to the Resource Center at this meeting. We will then be led in worship that has an Appalachian theme by Nellie Howard, ruling elder at First Presbyterian Church in Williamstown, Stephen Baldwin, pastor of Ronceverte Presbyterian Church, Barbara Acord, honorably retired pastor, and Monty Mitchell, pastor of Beckley Presbyterian Church. If you would like to have a printed bulletin for worship, you will need to print a copy of it. It can be found after page 58 in the packet. As part of worship, we will celebrate the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. Please be aware that all the bread that we use for communion is gluten-free. Following worship will be lunch. Please note that if you have any new business you would like for the Presbytery to consider, it must be submitted in writing to the stated clerk, Maureen Wright, prior to the lunch break. After lunch, it's back to work as we join in song and prayer, after which we move to the reports to the Presbytery. The first report comes from our Presbytery staff, the stated clerk and general presbyter. You will find the stated clerk's report on page 4. A significant part of Maureen's report concerns correspondence that she has received and referred. In the information section, there's an item that will be helpful if your congregation is considering a loan through the Presbyterian Investment and Loan Program. There is also a note for session clerks as to statistical reports and when data can be entered. Please be sure to share this with your clerk of session. As we join in the work of the Presbytery, the procedural matters that guide us can be found on page 5. These include principles of parliamentary law, courtesy to all, one item at a time, majority rule, respect the rights of the minority, justice for all, and partiality for none. Generally, these help us know how to work and play well with others as we meet together. As items are discussed, pro and con speakers will alternate, with individuals identifying the position they support. When a person has spoken on a pending question, all others wishing to speak will be heard before that person can speak a second time. Please note it takes special permission for someone to speak on the same question, the same issue, more than twice. On this page, you'll also find provisions from the Presbytery's manual that guide us. These include who, in addition to ruling elder commissioners to this meeting and minister members, have the ability to speak, to refer to as privilege of the floor with or without vote at this meeting. In the final section of page 5, you will find the procedural rules we follow. These include everyone speaking for whatever reason needs to go to a microphone, and when called on by the moderator, to share their name, church, or relationship to the presbytery. Please don't assume that everyone can hear you from where you sit, or that everyone knows your name. You know what assuming does, and it's a matter of respect. Here you will find that the limitation for debating any motion is 30 minutes per main motion, with each speaker limited to 3 minutes per speech, although this must be approved by 2/3 of those voting on the 24th. As you read the packet, if you see an item you feel called to speak to, you may wish to write your remarks down in advance to help keep you focused and enable you to use your time wisely. Next, Ed Thompson, our General Presbyter, will address the presbytery. You will find his written report on his ministry in the second quarter of the year, beginning on page 7. As we begin to hear committee reports, please note that these reports have 2 sections. One is the recommendation section, which contains items we will be voting on during the meeting. The other is an information section, which reports on the work of the committee since the last presbytery meeting. Please read all of each report for a sense of the entire work of the presbytery, as committees carry out a significant portion of our ministry and mission. In the leadership team's report on page 11, their recommendation will likely have passed on the consent agenda. The information section lifts up some of the things this visionary body has been working on. The Vocations Committee will be presenting a candidate for ordination as the primary part of its report. Maggie Rust has been called to be the pastor of First Presbyterian Church in Bluefield. She is a candidate under care of East Tennessee Presbytery. You will find her autobiographical statement and statement of faith on pages 13 and 14. The Vocations Committee chair will ask the first questions of the candidate. Then the floor will be open for anyone present with voice and vote to ask questions. As per the Book of Order in G-3.0306, questions should focus on the candidate's Christian faith and views in theology, the sacraments, and government of this church. Other questions will be ruled out of order. In the Vocations Committee report, you will also find information on participants in the ongoing Authorized Lay Preacher Commission Pastor Preparation Program, and a revision of the processes and procedures document that guides the committee's work with inquirers and candidates seeking ordination as ministers of word and sacrament, and the preparation of authorized preachers and commissioned pastors. There is also information about a communion training class to be held this fall for ruling elders who wish to be approved to preside at communion at their church of membership. The Stewardship Committee will be recommending the approval of a budget for 2020. You will find the proposed budget on pages 26 to 29 in the packet. In the information section, you will find several comments on the process for developing this budget and items to be considered moving beyond 2020. As part of the committee's written report, you will also find information on our current financial status as the end of the second quarter of 2019. This can be found on pages 30 to 36. The next pages update where each church is with shared mission giving and per capita payments as of the end of June 2019. The final financial pages share Bluestone Camp and Retreat and Friends of Bluestone's financial pictures for 2019. Good news from the pews is next. This is an opportunity for ruling elders, and ruling elders only, please, to share some of the things that are happening in their congregations that others might be able to take back to their congregations. If you are your session's ruling elder commissioner and you would like to share, please be prepared to do so and direct your remarks to the moderator using the microphone. As a reminder, ministers of Word and Sacrament are respectfully reminded this is not a time for them to speak, but to encourage the ruling elder from their congregation to do so. The report on the Committee on Ministry will follow. As part of their report, we will hear from a member of the worshiping community at Davis and Elkins College and commission 4 ruling elders for pastoral leadership. While the recommendation at the top of page 43 will most likely have been passed on the consent agenda, the information section contains a significant amount of material, including session moderators for churches without pastors, committee liaisons for churches in the search process, terms of call for 2 new pastors in our presbytery. These are Dawn Marie Adamy, who's been called to Bream Memorial Presbyterian Church in Charleston. Her biographical and faith statements can be found on page 46. And Maggie Rust, First Bluefield. This also includes approval of covenants and other things that the committee has been working on. Item 16 highlights that the next boundary training will be August 28th. If you are a ruling elder, you might want to ask your pastor, whether he or she is Presbyterian or not, if they have participated in one of these trainings, or encourage them to be there on August 28th, as this is required of them. You will find on the page 48 and 49 the report of the nominating committee. This is the meeting when the nominating committee makes its most comprehensive report of the year, nominating persons to serve in leadership and on committees of the presbytery. As we live into our revised manual, which provides for 6 members for most of our committees, for most committees there will be 1 or 2 nominees. For each position there will be an opportunity to nominate other persons. Please know, however, that if you wish to nominate someone to serve in any one of these positions, they will need to have agreed to serve if elected before you would nominate them. The recommendation of the Missions Committee can be found on page 50. These recommendations are on the consent agenda. Several folks from our presbytery will be in Kenya while we meet, and you will find more information on their work in this report. Here you will also find information on hunger grants and other grants. The Nurture Committee's recommendation for communion will be on the consent agenda. It's here because it's a responsibility of presbytery to approve celebration of the Lord's Supper beyond the local church. At this time, you will hear more about the Soul Shop Movement event in October to assist church leaders in working with those affected by suicide. Please note that while there are several new members of the Youth Council listed, we continue to have openings for both youth and adults. On page 52, you will also find information about other events for congregational leaders across the presbytery. The Relations Committee is responsible for triennial reviews and sharing good things that are happening in our congregations. At this meeting, they will be sharing more about their work. You'll also find more information on page 53. Sarah Speck, Program Director at Bluestone, will be sharing information on summer camp and what's coming up. In addition, we'll hear from David Kaufman from Friends of Bluestone, a separate 501c3 organization whose purpose is to support the ministries of Bluestone through raising funds for maintenance and upkeep. You'll find this committee's report on page 54. Please note that all of our committees and commissions do not make verbal reports at every presbytery meeting. At the end of the committee reports, you'll find written reports from the Administration Committee, the recommendations from which concern increases in salary for the officers of the presbytery. These are in keeping with increases for the rest of staff which do not require the vote of presbytery and are in the proposed 2020 budget. You will also find in this report information on this committee's ongoing work, including an update on disaster response preparation and several guidelines they are in the process of developing for financial and staffing plans. Finally, we currently have several administrative commissions working with churches to discern their ministry and mission, and in some instances, their dissolution. You will find the reports from all these commissions on page 57. Continuing through the printed packet, you will find the worship bulletin following page 58 and printed flyers about upcoming events. These flyers include the Small Church Conference, applying to be a commissioner to the 224th General Assembly in Baltimore next summer, communion training for ruling elders, the Bluestone Fall Getaway Retreat, Soul Shop Movement, and Leading Your Congregation Amid Change, a toolbox course. Please take these back and share them with your session and congregation. The end of the day brings time for any new business that was given to the stated clerk before lunch, the completion of evaluation forms which will be passed out after lunch, and adjournment with the benediction by the moderator. Please note, though, the end of the day doesn't mean that your responsibility is over. Your work continues as you take what you have learned and observed and share this with your session. As always, I know this video is long, so I congratulate you on having made it to the end. Safe travels, and I look forward to seeing you on the 24th at Bluestone.